It's a brand new day. Hey. Wake up every morning and say it's a brand new day. Hey. Take a good day, make it great, okay? 'Cause if you got some lemons, make some lemonade. Yeah, it tastes so good.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Garden Diaries. We're so happy you're here. If you haven't already, please like and share this video. Follow us wherever you get your podcast from. We're super excited to have you. We have a super special guest today. And we've already been laughing, so it's going to be a good one. Huh, Meg?
Mm-hmm. Special is a word.
We have the amazing Gregory, whatever else we call you.
Just don't call me late for dinner. I don't know. Yes, it's fine. Craig is good. Gregory's fine. Everyone's adopted it, so I'm good.
Who are you, Craig?
I am the community engagement pastor here at Marcus Pointe Baptist Church. So I've been here for, where am I supposed to look? Am I supposed to look at you or am I supposed to look at the camera? Hey, folks, how you doing? I don't know. We're just trying to figure it out right now. This is not my thing.
And you just pretend the cameras aren't there.
Oh, God, pretend the camera's not there? Okay, I will not be looking at you guys the entire time we do this. I'm not ignoring you.
I mean, you can do what you want.
I guess. I don't know. I normally do. No, so I do the community engagement work here for Marcus Pointe. So that's all of our large scale events, things like Sportsman's Night Out, our sunrise service that we do every Easter, Spirit of Christmas, our egg hunts that we do. I kind of organize and manage all of the chaos that are those things so that we can reach the community. But then I also help us partner with local nonprofits and civic organizations that help benefit the community in some way. So we have a number of people that use our space, use our facility, and we go and we support a number of different organizations throughout the community here. And the idea is be the church in the community versus, hey, come into the church to find it. And I think that's kind of, we've gotten it backwards. A lot of times in the church, we will recreate programs that already exist in the community, and we will try to do something like, hey, we're going to do this great thing for, the homeless. I'm like, well, there's a lot of people doing great things for the homeless. Find those people and do it with them instead of just kind of create your own thing. So that's what I do.
But you haven't always been the community pastor.
No. So I've been here at Marcus Pointe for almost 19 years now. And I started off as a student ministry. I was there for 10 years. Then I did small groups for 5 years. And then I've been doing this, well, I don't even know, maybe not, that math doesn't add up, but it's somewhere around that time.
Math isn't mathing.
This math is not mathing.
How old are you?
Very old. I am old enough that I went and did a teledoc the other day. And the guy on the teledoc said, you're really of an age where you should not be doing teledoc. You need to see somebody in person. And I was like, what? I didn't realize I'd hit that, but I'm almost 50. So yeah, it's
wow.
It's crest on the top. I've been in ministry since I was 19 here in this area, just in the Pensacola, Escambia County area. Yep. So
fun fact, Craig was the first person that Mike and I met when we came into Marcus Pointe.
I am to blame for all of it.
Yes.
You're listening to this trash because of me. You're welcome.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Trash.
I did call it trash. I've not actually listened to it, so I don't know if it's any good. Is it good? I'm not. I'm just kidding.
I was about to smack you, actually. But no, Craig baptized Mike and I.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
it was really the Lord's work. I was just there, but
but you baptized.
Physically
us.
put you under the water. I didn't hold you under long enough, apparently, but here we are.
And you dedicated our kids.
I did. Yeah.
So
no, Mike and Brittany have been absolutely incredible. There are people that in ministry is very frustrating. It can be because you will invest your life in people. That's all you ever do is invest your life in people. And sometimes you see that investment pay off, and other times you see that investment, what I would say, is wasted. And you hope that eventually they'll turn around and they'll come back to the Lord, or they'll come back to each other. Or sometimes a marriage would fall apart, and you spent months and years trying to help them to see that marriage is difficult, and sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. But anyway, with you guys, it's been just seeing God continue to grow you and grow ministry. And now Mike's on staff as a pastor here, and just being able to go from, hey, a guy that, just came in and is a part of the church, to someone who's actually leading an entire church, which is pretty amazing to watch.
So Craig has this thing that he does with small groups. He starts a small group, and then he picks somebody that he wants to take over the small group, and then he hands it to you and walks away.
No, I bail. It's not even walk away.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, hey, next week I'm not ever coming back.
Yes.
Mike's leading. Have fun.
And that's the first time Mike's heard about it.
That day. Yes, that was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Wow.
So we had a small group.
It's a Band-Aid. Just rip it off.
Oh, it was more than a Band-Aid. And you wonder why I'm the way I am sometimes. Because that's how ministry has been for me. It's been like, okay, we're jumping in 2 feet forward and the Lord's going to provide, and that's what's going to be.
Well, I think you find out more in the mistakes.
You do.
You really do learn more in the mistakes. You can go, I did not get seminary trained until I was in my 40s. So I actually graduated with an organizational communications degree, when we think that someone who graduated with that degree could say it. Anyway.
It's a mouthful.
It is. So I had a completely secular education, and I was told to do that by my youth pastor, even though I was in ministry. He goes, get a secular education because, you never know if you might get out of ministry one day. I was like, okay. So I got that, and then I went directly into church work. So I didn't actually do theological education until I had been at churches for many, many years. And I probably learned more about ministry just from making the mistakes.
Right.
And I feel like it's kind of the best way to do it, to be honest with you. So
Well, we like to ask fun questions to
Go
get
for
the
it.
podcast started. I'm going to let Meg go first.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be
I hate this question.
and why?
Probably teleportation, because I just don't like driving and I'm really bad at it. I literally just picked my truck up from backing into my daughter's car in the driveway. So if I had teleportation, I could just go like, work. Okay, I'm there. I'm done. Great. And just home.
How do you back into your daughter's car in the driveway?
Listen, I ordered my CPAP machine look, I got out of the car, saw the record. I'm like, CPAP machine ordered. So yeah, apparently not getting enough sleep. I don't know. So
Okay.
yeah, teleportation.
Teleportation. What is the most embarrassing fall that you've ever had in your life so far?
That's so easy. So I was brand new student in high school at a new church in New City. So I was here, just moved to Pensacola. I was at Olive Baptist Church, which at the time had, I want to say 400 people in its youth ministry. We took about 350 people to camp every summer. So it's my very first summer with them at camp. I had been there a month, and we had pulled up to, all these buses of 300 some odd kids had pulled up to the mall in Birmingham, and I'm at the door because I was that kid. Like, I was the Jesus beaten weirdo, no one liked you, but you're going to have to like me because I'm not going anywhere, annoying kid. That's how I was. I mean, literally, my best friends that were all at my wedding said to me, we figured you were just never going away, so we became your friend. That is exactly, they were my best men. Like, we spent it's crazy. Anyway, so I am the first kid and the first bus ready to go. It is slightly raining, and so I dashed for the door because I needed to get to Chick-fil-A, and I hit a wet spot, and I began to slide. Not just like I fell. No, it was a full-scale slide, and there was a guy coming out of the mall at the same time, and he opened the door, and I slid into the wall. And there's a Ruby Tuesdays that was right there, and there's now an entire crowd of people, and he yells out, "Safe!" as loud as he could, right? And the entire bus and all these high school kids and middle school kids are now laughing. There is an entire restaurant of people standing and clapping. I am mortified at this, and I just run to the Chick-fil-A. So that was it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's vivid
It sounded
memory.
like people were encouraging, though. So,
Oh yeah, no, they thought it was hilarious. There was no encouragement. No,
oh.
it was like church ministry in the 90s. No one was encouraging. Come on. Youth groups were terrible. No, it's okay.
What is one thing on your bucket list that you really want to do?
I really wanted to go to the Holy Land. My wife and I were scheduled to go to the Holy Land and get to see it. And obviously everything kind of started happening in Jerusalem, and we have not been able to go. So that is my big bucket list. The other thing is a Mediterranean cruise with my wife. That is on her bucket list. And then as really not manly straight as this is about to sound, the RHS Chelsea Flower Show in London is something that, it's a Royal Horticultural Society. And
I have never heard of that in my life. And I am a woman.
So here's the thing. My wife watches Gardener's World from the BBC every Saturday morning. It is an absolute must. There's her Saturday morning routine, and she absolutely loves gardening. And this is like the biggest flower show, gardening show in the world to some degree. And so I want to go over there so bad to take her over there. Because realistically, I don't know about y'all's husbands, but I'm pretty simplistic. I don't really need anything in life. As long as my wife is happy, I'm doing fine.
Happy life, happy life.
Yeah, and in many ways, I just don't have a need. Like, people ask me all the time, kids are like, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, nothing. I don't want anything. I don't want stuff. I just want to like have a great family and be cool. That's it. So it really would be anywhere with my wife. We just got back from Alaska, which was a bucket list trip, and it was just the two of us. It was the first time just the two of us had been on a trip for, my daughter's 20, so 20 years. And it was awesome just to go and do stuff with her again.
That's awesome. We still have yet to take a trip, just Mike and I, and we've been married for 13 years almost.
Yeah, you gotta wait. It's once you have kids, it's crazy. It's very, very hard.
Well, we were poor.
Well,
when we first got married.
Yeah, and we were very poor when we first got married too. So I don't know if we went on trips. I guess we did. I don't know.
I feel like our trips
Probably
were
more.
to the store, to Walmart. I feel like we'd spend a lot of time at Walmart.
Were you BOGO poor? Like people would buy BOGOs and give you the goes?
Like,
that's what happened with us.
I don't know. I don't even know what that is, but I think that we were poor enough to where like we ate pasta with just pasta,
Yeah.
like boiled pasta,
Ramen with like
yeah.
It's amazing how much you can fix up a ramen noodle if you really try at it.
True.
But we were so broke when we first got married that my family and her family would go to Winn-Dixie. They would go do BOGOs.
Oh, and you would get the free.
And we would get the goes. So they would get an item. And so we get these random packages of groceries that have, no rhyme or reason whatsoever. It's just whatever was on BOGO at the time. And we would try to make meals out of it. And we look back now, especially with our kids, because, you always want your kids to have better than you.
Yeah.
But I really don't. I want my kids to be broke for about 2 years. I want them to be struggling to get by. We bought a couch. We were so broke. We went to a waterfront rescue mission and we tried to buy a couch. And we found this cute little thing that my wife liked. It wasn't a couch. It was the wedge of a sectional, not the sectional, the wedge of the sectional. So it was a triangle that you could only sit either back to back on, or you had to cross your legs over. You couldn't sit straight because there wasn't enough room. So that was our couch, and we got it for like $25. But I remember those days vividly because there is such a bonding that happens when you have to try to figure out how to survive, and it brings you closer together as a couple.
I agree
So.
with that. I do too. Okay. Do you have an embarrassing nickname? What is it?
Gregory, and pretty much everyone just uses it.
It's
so
embarrassing?
Yeah. I don't even know how it started. I think it started with my wife, but
Yeah.
it's this weird thing that people just say it. Women especially will just say, "Hey, Gregory," and I'm like, where does it come into someone's mind that Gregory is the word that you should use? I don't know. I've never said it. No, but I think that's pretty much the only embarrassing nickname that there's probably been many embarrassing nicknames I did not know about over the years. But yeah, that's the only one.
All right, my last question. If you could only eat one
Sitting
meal.
down.
What?
I figured it out. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not asking that question.
No,
so go ahead.
no.
All right, go.
Question.
All right, sorry.
That's for another time. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That is actually a really, really tough one. Because I get, I'm one of those guys that goes to restaurants and I always order something new. There was a great episode of, not Malcolm in the Middle. Oh, it's the one with the families in the 80s and on ABC. I can't remember the name of the show. But they go to this fancy restaurant and the oldest brother orders, it's a steak restaurant, and he orders the river fish. And my wife laughs because that's what I do at every restaurant I go to. I'm like, this looks interesting. I think I'm going to try that. And she goes, don't eat. No, you're not going to like it. And I was like, oh no, I think I know what I like. And sure enough, I'll get it and I hate it.
But you still do it?
But I still do it from time to time. If I, see, I get sick of steak.
That's the definition of insanity.
It is. Man, it's probably going to be something really unhealthy because there's not much healthy in the States these days. You know what? Okay, I got it. And it is actually really unhealthy. And it will, but there's a little food truck here that has it's a Mexican food truck, and it's got something called La Gringa, which I'm pretty sure means the white guy. I think they're all sketchy, and the sketchier the taco truck, the better the taco. Let's be very
Amen
clear.
to that.
Is it El Asador?
No, it's on. It's right next to a CBD joint, which I think pretty much everything is next to a CBD joint these days. But anyway, it's like they're popping up everywhere. Anyway, No, but it's just basically all it is it's all the meats that they have in a box with pineapple and cheese, and that's it. It's just tons of meat, no veggies, meat and cheese, grease, and I could eat it all day.
And pineapple?
And pineapple, pork, bacon, pineapple, steak, just all together.
That sounds like a nightmare in the bathroom.
It could be, but if it's the only thing I'm going to eat, it might as well be the only thing I'm going to eat. Although I'm a milk guy, I will say this: if we go to drink, it's milk, bar none.
Milk?
Yes, milk.
Like with dinner?
If the only thing, yes. If I go out and I'm like, if I went out and I just did, because we got this land and I got to mowing the yard takes like 6 hours. And so if I come in and I'm hot and it's long, I'm going to grab a big old glass of milk. Yeah, I know. There's so many people that hate that, but that's for me. It's always been that way. Milk has been the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
There we go.
What's a funny habit that you do at home when no one is watching?
I don't feel like there's any time that no one is not watching. It's like the Truman Show at my house. Man, a funny habit. I don't know that I actually have one. I mean, I will talk to myself in the shower a lot, if that makes any sense. Like, I plan out my day, or I'll talk to myself about certain things, or I'll preach a sermon, or something. Just I don't know.
Does Soap really enjoy your sermon?
Yeah, it nearly does. Nearly does. Yeah.
Cool.
Gets baptized every Sunday. So, anyway. I mean, it's a shower, so it's more like a Methodist baptism, but let's go on. Which I was Methodist for 3.5 years, so I guess it does count legally. I don't know.
Telling me that.
So
we had the fun stuff.
Yes.
I don't know if you really thought it was fun, but it was fun for us.
Okay.
I wanted to give you the opportunity. There's obviously a lot of things that we can talk about here, but I think two of the things that you've helped us specifically through, and I think a lot of people that are listening, I would say, was marriage and family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll kind of let you take the reins of which one you really want to dive into. But
I'm down for either one. Yeah, they're both tough.
They are.
Yeah.
So you have older kids.
I do, 16 and 20.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about parenting, just in general.
Well, I think the first thing I would tell you is I'm a failure as a parent. So I think that's a good place to start. And my life motto is I suck, you suck, thank God for Jesus. Because there's a lot of times you think about an expert and oh, well, I've got a 16 and 20-year-old, so they obviously, they're not both crackheads, so we're done something right. And I would tell you, God's done a lot, and I've done very little. I've also failed dramatically as a parent. I've failed not only them, but we at one point in time had a young lady in our house that we kind of tried to take on in an adoption role, and it did not work out the way that I wanted to at all. And she hurt, and we hurt, and the whole thing was a mess. And it still breaks my heart, and it's still. So I will tell you this: the first thing to understand in parenting is you're never going to do it 100% right, and no one has the answer. Right? You can get a lot of advice and you can see what fits, but each kid is different and each situation is different. We have our two biological children are very different in styles. Caitlin was a trauma birth. She died when she was born, and my wife was dying when she was born. And so she went without oxygen for probably about 6 or 7 minutes. And they finally were able to bring her back. But that lack of oxygen caused her to have some brain issues. Nothing terribly traumatic, but she has what they call a short-term process disorder and a couple of other things. So when we were trying to discipline her as a younger child, it was very frustrating because we would get onto her for doing something. We'd send her up to her room, give her a spanking, send her up to her room. And she would be crying at the time. By the time she got to the top of the stairs, she had completely forgotten as to what was going on. So she'd go into her room and start playing. And then she'd come out 5 minutes later. Can I have some ice cream? And you're just like, what is wrong with you? And so we had to learn that certain things did not work for her. So for her, spanking, while we 100% agreed with it, didn't work for her because it was gone instantly. So we had to talk about, well, we were going to do this, but we were not able to do this now because you did this, and kind of get her to understand. Carson, on the other hand, was somebody you could look at wrong and he would just crumble. And I think we all have that as kids. So I would say don't be formulaic in your parenting styles. Understand that it's going to be flexible, and it's got to be flexible for each kid, and it's not going to be fair. You're gonna feel like you're treating one kid more harshly than you're treating the other kid, but you're really just parenting them in the way that they have to be parented. So that's one. And the other thing is you have to find community. If there's not people that surround you, families, good families that can lean into your kids and help you. We have had a community, obviously being here since my daughter was 1.5, about one. We've had a community of people that have helped raise her up. You know, my son has been here since he was born, so he knows everybody at this church. Everybody knows him. When they see him out in town, they know him. So there is there's an expectation there that there's always somebody that's got an eye on him. So, because it's easy for kids to think, hey, I can get away with this when I'm not in the presence of my mom and dad. But when mom and dad have a network of spies that are there, right? No, but a network of concerned people that love their kid and see them out and about, and they know that it's a little bit harder for them to get away with stuff. But the biggest thing I would say is trust in the Lord more than you trust in yourself, or more than you trust in an expert. We've been very, very blessed. Our kids still love the Lord, even being a pastor's kid, and that's very difficult, I think. But we've also not mandated church as much as we've tried to help walk them through what relationship with Christ looks like, and not just go to church because it's Sunday, we're going to church.
Right.
A lot of people grow up with that mentality. They grow up, we're going to church because it's Sunday. And there's nothing wrong with being consistent. That's absolutely the case. But why are we being consistent? What's the why behind this? And kids, I think, once they can understand it, will grasp it themselves. And that's been a big thing for us, especially as our daughter turns 20 and she's, dating a guy now that she's probably, gonna marry or whatever. And but finding that guy and them trying to figure out what community looks like for them and what the church looks like for them, and for herself as an individual now as kind of an adult. It's nice to see that she's actually going through the process in her head versus, well, I'm just going to go here on Sunday because that's where we go, or I'm just going to do this thing because that's what I do. No, they've got to begin to internalize it and think through it, which means we have to as well as parents.
That's good. We had somebody on the podcast, one of Megan's friends, and she was a pastor's kid. And one of the questions I had asked her, because I feel like, a lot of times my kids didn't sign up for this. They were voluntold. And
right.
Mike said something the other day that was a light bulb for me. He's like, I really shifted my perspective. But God knew. They didn't sign up for it, but the Lord knew that
they were predetermined to some degree for that. Yeah.
Correct. So it was really cool to hear what she said, because she's like, I got to do this, and this was great, and it was such a family bonding thing. And I never looked at it that way. I looked at it like, we're going to be here all day. I'm going to have to drag them with me. It's probably not going to be fun for them. But Liz put it in perspective for me that it was some of her best memories with her family was them being together and serving together. And, so that's been something I've kind of struggled with a little bit, because I'm I don't want them to resent that their whole life has been consumed with ministry in whatever facet, especially in a satellite church where on Sundays you're there from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m.
2 o'clock, and
church is all day Sunday. And I don't want them to look back and be like, gosh, that was another check in the box, another tour.
Although I will say back in the day, back in the 80s, church was you went from 8 to noon, and then you came back at 5 to 8. So there was really an all day thing, because Even here, we had church at Sunday night.
You did it on in the morning time.
No, you had another service on Sunday night.
Went home after lunch, took a break, maybe a nap if you had time.
Thank you.
Came back for
discipleship training, which was kind of like your small groups, but more intense. And then you would go into another service that night, and it's realistically that's the holy elect service. Those who really love the Lord went into they went into that service because they showed up, right? Because Wednesdays for fun, Sunday morning is for everybody, Sunday night is for those who love the Lord, and I mean that's what it used to be. So.
I never experienced that.
But I will say this. The thing about if you do it well and you do it right, because my wife is a pastor's kid, and she has a lot of great memories of church, but there's also a lot of painful memories of church. And we've been able to, very luckily, we've been here for most of our children's lives. So that's one thing they haven't experienced is a lot of church hurt. There's been some,
Yeah.
but they have not experienced what we experienced in previous churches where, the politics, the horrible things. I mean, I had a church where there was a deacon that wanted me fired every Sunday and tried to bring it to a vote for a year. So it was, we've been there and we've been hurt by the church, but my kids have not, so which is nice. Although I do tell them about the hurt because churches are going to hurt you. I mean, there is that reality to some degree because they're filled with people and people are often not great. But one of the things that's really cool is that they've gotten the blessing of being to do ministry, being able to go on ministry and do things. One of the things that they love to do is mug drop home visits. We do home visits here as a part of what we do. And so if you come and visit the church, somebody will come by your house and drop a gift off just as a way of saying thank you. And there was a point in time when they were younger, they loved going to those with me. Absolutely loved it because it was time alone in the car. They got to just hang out with me. We got to go grab and you do something fun with them at the time. You go, hey, let's get some ice cream. We're going to do something like that. And I think what that does is it makes ministry for them almost like a bonding experience versus a work experience. So pushing carts at, I think it was at our Pace campus, one of our worship leaders, her kid's like 1. And there was a picture of that kid trying to push one of the carts. Is that was that Riker? Well,
Riker
it was
also sweeps.
Also sweeps. There you go. But I mean, that is it could seem like slave labor, I guess, but realistically, it's probably need to check your parenting styles. But anyway,
I put it on social media
I'm just
too.
yeah. I love it. No, because I do love it because what it is Riker is seeing that people love the church, and this is what you do when you love God, and when you love His people, and that's what church is. Church is community, and so not only that, but Riker's, every Sunday Riker's involved with people. Your kids, all your kids, are involved with people that love the Lord and love them, and so they get multiple parents in a ministry. One of the great things we've done with all of our kids is mission trips. Foreign country mission trips. I will not say enough about get your kids 8 and up on a mission field. Get them there. Because nothing changes the perspective of a child than going out there and ministering to somebody else. It's not about like, hey, go look at this poor kid. No, it's not about that. It's about, hey, we're gonna sacrifice ourselves and our vacation, and we're gonna go to Costa Rica, and we're gonna serve people. And my kids have learn to love not only travel, not only have they seen that the world is not Pensacola, Florida, which is a very small area. They've seen that there's a whole lot of difference out there in the world. That's one thing. But they've also seen that they can be a difference maker, even starting at 8 years old, right? And that's something that most ministries can't afford children. Most pastors, that your kids, you can easily say, hey, we're going to go on a mission trip. And it's something that we're going to do as a family, and it'll be life-changing for them. So I think of it more as an opportunity for our kids. My kids have had the opportunity to be ministered to by people in the church. You guys have ministered to my kids over the years. And then they've also had the opportunity to minister to others, as like Riker's doing right now, as sweeping the floors, which...
I always say, if you're not at Riker's level of sweeping the floors, then you're not doing it right. Like if a 2-year-old can outwork you, there's an issue.
In ministry, this is my way of looking at ministry. Is if I ever ask someone to do something, it would be something that I've already done myself, or I'm doing it with them. Yeah, I'm not going to do something. I'm not going to say, hey, you go over here and do this, and I'm not going to be there doing it.
Right.
Because there's no levels in ministry. Really, there aren't. It's just everyone's here to serve the Lord and serve each other.
That's kind of my husband. He grew up. His dad was an evangelist, youth pastor for a good portion of Zach's life up until he was 13, and then they went to evangelism. So it was traveling, and that's something like Zach said, that growing up as a pastor's kid, he now appreciates people in ministry more because he's seen, his dad in the trenches, and he's seen his dad weeping like when people aren't around, and you hear the hard stuff. But he also saw where like their family didn't have I mean, they all lived in a fifth wheel, and there was 4 kids and it was very tight, and their family, because of that, became very tight because his parents, they were involved in everything, children's ministry, they all sang, they were there, everything. You were going to the pastor's house, and so he got to know a lot of people. He got to see different sides of ministry, and that was the thing that he says now. Like he appreciates it more than growing up. Obviously, it was his dad, but like he knows what's on the other side, and he's seen it, and he appreciates the time, because it's not just you clock in on Sunday, and I think a lot of people have that perspective. You just go to church and you preach, and then you're done.
I wish
for
I
the
worked
week.
at a church. You only work one day a week.
Yeah, no, he's like, it's 24/7.
It is.
And you've even talked about how Mike, like, he's constantly on call, like,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be willing to, and so he's taught me, like, just by, and I got to experience some of that when we were dating and up until his dad passed away. And I saw, like, the faith it takes, because you're not bringing in a lot of money.
Sure.
And with them, it was like, it was all whatever the Lord provided at the next church. And if that was going to get them fuel in their truck and be able to, and it was like amazing to see how God always provides. But Zach has those precious memories now, like and I can see how it's also changed how he's parenting our children, because he wants them to be involved,
The evangelist life is crazy. That's a whole different level of faith. But I will say this, because I think it's important. There's ways to point out the good side of being a pastor's kid, but there's also just as many people that have had really negative reactions to being a pastor's kid, and that's because the pastor chose other people over them first. When you become a parent, my first responsibility is to my kids, right? And people will kind of argue, like, no, your first responsibility is to the Lord. I mean, I don't even put that on the chart.
Right.
Obviously, my personal life with God and my relationship with God, it doesn't get ranked, because it's just there. It should be there at all times.
Right.
But when you have a child, then they become your next responsibility. And I believe in many ways my wife becomes the third responsibility, because we together sacrifice for our kids. And people will like, no, that's not true. Okay, well, if a gunman came into your house and said, I'm going to shoot your wife, I'm going to shoot your children, which one would you choose? Well, my wife I'll tell you which one she wants me to choose. I know for a fact which one she wants me to choose. Take me. Take me first. Leave my kids. So you got to be able to love those kids first. And I think a lot of times what happens in most of these churches is where pastors and pastor kids have problems is, one, they love other people more than they love their kids, and they don't sacrifice for their kids. So you guys just went to Disney and spent a lot of time in Disney, and whenever you're a pastor, there's a pull to not do that, because what happens if someone has an emergency? What happens if something goes wrong? And so you always feel like you're always on call, and you can't ever stop and just take time for the kids, because if you do, what if this is, and I applaud you guys for taking that time, because they need to know they're first. And that, yes, ministry is there, and you can do ministry with me, but so that's the other thing. The other way that pastors oftentimes have problematic families is that they don't act the way they act on Sunday at home.
Ooh.
And that's it. If they'll come home and they'll treat their wife and their kids horribly, they will cuss and rant and rave. And I'm not saying that we don't cuss. I trust me, I lose my temper. That's not the case. But then do you go back and apologize? How do you treat them versus how do you treat other people? It's said that there was a point in time in my life where my marriage was suffering, and I would be doing marital counseling, but my marriage is suffering, which is the reality, FYI, of pastors. That you don't get to take a quote unquote break just because you're going through it at the time. People still need you. They still depend on you, and you still have to give wise counsel. Luckily, I'm only giving counsel out of the Bible and out of my mistakes. That's how I do all of my counseling is, here's what I've done wrong. Don't do that stuff. And here's what the Bible says about this. Because I don't have the answers. Again, I'm not good. I'm not a good person. I know that. The Bible is very clear about that. And so I'm not going to give you counsel from my vantage point. But I'll go home and I won't apply what I said in that meeting to my wife. And there's been a statement that's been made in my house. Well, I wish I was one of your counseling people that you counsel, so you would treat me better.
Ouch.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts because it was true. It generally only hurts when it is true. FYI, if it hurts, it's probably true.
That's a Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and so I had to realize real quick. Yeah, I'm not doing right. Yes, my wife's not doing right as well, but I'm not doing right, and I got to take that responsibility. So I think a lot of times pastors tend to get this idea that whatever I say is the law, it's the word of the Lord, and they get this kind of power trip going on, and they go into a household with that same mindset, and they bear down, and they clamp down, and they treat their wife and kids poorly, and then they go out into a pulpit and they talk about the love of God, and a kid growing up sees that, and they want nothing to do with God because of the hypocrisy they've seen in their house. And those are real things. So what I would tell you is just be genuine with your kids. And I said that to when I was in student ministry and teaching parents about how to deal with teens, especially teen issues. Holy cow!
That's another.
I'm
not ready.
Tell your kids your struggles. Go with them. Don't act like you had it all together. That's the problem. A lot of times people will be like, no, I don't want my kids to see that I failed. No, you do. Yeah. You really do. And talking with marital counseling with couples, they're so funny. They would come in and be like, so tell me how your parents would fight with one another. Like, oh, I never saw my parents fight. They never fought at all. I'm like, that's not true. I guarantee you that's not true.
Yeah.
Your parents have fought. You just never seen it.
Yeah.
So fight in front of your kids. Do it. Fight in front of your kids. Not like physically, FYI, but have an argument in front of your kids and then make up in front of your kids so that your kids can see marriage is not easy. It's hard. There are difficult times, and we can come back together and love one another, even though we didn't have a fun time this week or this day. But the same thing's true in raising up a teenager. When they start coming to you about problems of drugs, temptation of alcohol, temptation of sex, all this stuff, have the honest conversations. Yep, I was 15 when I did, I've yet to have an illegal drug ever. I think I've smoked one cigar in my entire life. Like, I was the straight-lacedest kid you've ever met in your life. Like, oh my goodness. I've never, ever been drunk, or never, ever been high. So I don't have those. I have a porn addiction that started at 12. So I can talk to my kid about that. And I was very honest with my kids about that. And honest with my kids about my life and our mistakes that my wife and I made previous to our getting married. Why? Because it's important that they know, one, you can fail and you can fail forward. It's not the end of the world. If it's in the church world, certain things, let's be honest, are complete failures that you don't feel like you can ever get back up from.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of things that we can't talk about.
A lot of things we can't talk about, but also
we should talk about.
Well, also things we miss. We completely skip other things that we just don't want to talk about. FYI, gluttony, but it's a whole other story. But not only can you fail, it's expected that you will. Right, your kids. We all know our kids are not going to make 100% wise choices every single day. You know it, and so if your kid expects that perfection is the expectation in the household, they're never going to tell you anything. They're never going to open up about a struggle. They're never going to begin to, and you want to have those conversations. You want to talk about this and work through with them on these things. My son got in his first wreck. He hydroplaned and he ended up hitting another car. He did very well in kind of correcting it, and I was able to sit down and talk to him with it, but I pulled up to the scene and he's, like all 16-year-old kids are when they get in their first accident, scared to death and crying and the whole deal. And I'm like, dude, listen, I get it. I've been there. I've done exactly what you've done right now. I have driven poorly. Apparently you did not do that. You're okay. But there are going to be consequences. There are going to be prices to pay. We're going to sit down and talk about that. You're not getting off scot-free, but I'm not going to come down on you because you're going to cost me this money. And I'm,
Right. I think it's showing the grace. Like, I think that's one thing that we try to do too. Like, if they make mistakes, one thing I like to say is, like, I understand that you didn't mean to do this, and that loving and that grace. But to your point, there's also consequences for your actions. And unfortunately, sin causes consequences, and sometimes there are consequences that you would never even think happen that kind of snowball. But like Mike and I always like to do apologies in front of one another so that kids can see, like,
that's gorgeous.
Mommy and Daddy, like, we were frustrated with each other, but we love each other and we're saying sorry. And like, I've apologized to my kids before because
absolutely. Oh, that's so good.
I've gotten frustrated, and I will walk in the room and I'll say, you know what? the way I talked to you was not my best.
Right.
And I spent some time with the Lord, and I prayed, and I asked Jesus for forgiveness. Now I'm asking you for forgiveness.
Yep.
I'm sorry for the way that I acted.
And you're teaching them so many great things in that. So many great things you're teaching them in that moment. You're teaching them that you're not going to be perfect, that there
Right.
is grace, there is acceptance, there is forgiveness, there is ability to restart and to mend a relationship. Because I've seen so many people that get into a marriage situation and they have their first major fight and they feel like the whole thing's unraveled. Like it's all gone. It's, oh my gosh, this never happened at my house. I'm like, it happened. It really did. Either one party was so dominant in your house that the other one never said anything, or they said it behind closed doors so they would never,
Rock the boat.
rock the boat. And either way, it's not good.
Yeah.
Because we are going to have arguments. Your marriage is not going to be perfect. My marriage is not perfect because it's made up of imperfect people.
Selfish people.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we're looking for what's best for us generally. Yeah.
I think, like, speaking of marriage and being vulnerable, I think the one thing I have appreciated, and Zach and I can attest to this since we've joined Beulah, is finding a marriage group, because that has been life-changing for us, because we both grew up in the church atmosphere where you didn't talk about anything, because it was all hush-hush, and I remember the first Sunday that we sat in that group, and it was like, Zach made the comment, he's like, wow, like other people are struggling too. And it made, and that has, like, that group has impacted our marriage for the better, because we now have friends who are in the trenches and we're struggling, and we can be honest with each other. And like, we've shared we've allowed ourselves to be very vulnerable, and hearing other people do it too. And that's like really just strengthen our relationship with the Lord, because like we're not hiding anymore. We're not trying to like be these perfect people when you walk into church, because we are very broken people.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's been pivotal in our walk with the Lord individually and as a couple.
Well, I think knowing the backstory is so vital to the faces you see on a Sunday morning. Oftentimes I will have people that tell me, I just wish my marriage was like so-and-so's. And I was like, I've been here for 19 years. Let me tell you, I've seen what's going on in that marriage. I know. When you're a pastor, you get all the details. I got them all. And that's one of the reasons that I say this. My motto is that I suck, you suck, thank God for Jesus. Because yes, I do know the affairs. I do know the addictions. I do know the problems. I do know the abuse. I see it. And if I was a guy that's just keeping all the records up here, like, well, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this, you do this. Well, now all of a sudden I can't really be a good pastor to them, because I see myself as better than them, and I don't. But I want other couples to see the same thing. When you walk into a small group, and I would tell you the most important piece of a ministry is not the preaching, it's not the worship, it's the connection. It's the small group.
Amen.
It's it. You find a good small group of people that you can love and love you back. You can fight hell with a water pistol. You can, because you have a team of people that understand, that get it. And you can call them in the midst of a problem and say, pray for me, we're going through it. And they're not going to say, you need to dump him, you need to leave him.
Right.
They're not going to give you unsound biblical advice. They're going to pray with you and walk with you through it, versus a lot of times bad counsel is what ends a lot of relationships, or allows for, giant parenting mistakes, is because it's bad counsel. And I would tell you, find a group that is based on your life stage. So where are your kids at? Mine are older. I've got one teenager still. I can still do kind of teen groups of people with teens, but a lot of the people in my group now are empty nesters. They're starting to have kids that are out, and it's a completely different life stage. So having adult children, FYI, way harder than having children, because you cannot control them anymore. It is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do so many things. I want to tell my 20-year-old so many things. Go do this, go do that. And I know I have zero ability to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just now, you talk about trusting. I'm just trusting the Lord. But I need people alongside me that have walked that I can go, what do you do when they make this decision and you don't agree with the decision? And like, how did you deal with it? And because they're going to give me good counsel. And so I would say that's absolutely what everyone should be finding, is a group of people. And if you can't find it, start it. Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
Start it. because so many people are afraid, I don't know enough scripture, I don't know enough of this. If you can open the Bible and read it, if you have the ability to read and you have the ability to just enjoy others' company, that is all you need to start a small group. That is legitimately it. I don't need you teaching theology. We just need you saying, hey, I love people and I want friends. And sometimes people are like, I want to find a group of people that I could be friends with. Well, that group may not exist. You need to start it.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, Meg, being vulnerable. I think a lot of times, like, I didn't grow up in church my entire life. So, like, you're going to get vulnerability from me because that's just how I was indoctrinated to the church with people that I was allowed to be vulnerable with.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that was in your small group. And so you're going to get the real and the raw meat. And maybe sometimes that's too much. And I know a lot of people are like, why would you ever share that? And I'm like, why would you not?
Right.
Like, I don't want you looking at me, putting a microscope on me because I'm going to fail you every single time. And I think especially like being a pastor's wife and people look at me sometimes and like I've had comments being made and I'm like, you're holding me to a standard that I'm going to fail you every time. Like, I'm so sorry that
I'll knock that pedestal out. You try to put me on it, I'll kick it down every time.
Right. Like somebody,
my feet won't even touch the top.
I'll
Nope.
never forget, like, I walked into church one day and somebody came up to me and like, I can't believe you're wearing that. And I'm like, Yep. This is me. This is you're getting this.
You probably shouldn't have worn a swimsuit to church that day, though. Let's be honest.
The bikini was too much. It was definitely the breaking point.
We're just kidding. It didn't happen.
Yes, jokes. It was probably like my holy jeans. But yeah, I think the vulnerability piece is key, and I think talking about the hard topics. Because a lot of times when Mike gets asked for counseling, and I'm sure same with you, they're not talking about rainbows and butterflies. They're talking about hard things that are always taboo and somebody stepping out or infidelity or
it's an issue. It's generally an issue, and it's an issue that they don't want other people to quote unquote know about.
Right.
And because they don't want to be judged. And that's the biggest thing in church. Like, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to come in and be judged. One of the things I love about this church, and I have loved about this church for a long period of time, is that it is a church full of broken people.
Yep.
Murderers, alcoholics, drug addicts, they're here. They walk through our doors every single day. And so when we sit down and we worship the Lord, we're doing it from a place of universal brokenness. So I can't look across and go, yep, there's the good ones. They're the good people over there. Because there aren't any. And that's great. Because that opens up. But people need to understand that, because people come into a church and they'll visit a church like ours for the first time. And they'll be like, everyone seems to have all their stuff together. I'm like, but we don't.
If you wanted to.
There's lots of brokenness, lots of pain, lots of things going on. You don't want to share all that, FYI. You don't want to be that guy in the small group. It's like, only thing I'm sharing is the negative, and like, my life is horrible, and please don't be that guy. No one likes that guy, FYI. So share the blessings too, and go out and have fun with people. I think that's the other thing about small groups is don't just come together once a week and study the Bible. We have a Tuesday night small group. I got a Sunday morning small group, a Tuesday night small group, and I got a Wednesday night small group. But
it's a small group.
Yeah, my small group. That is my people is Tuesday night. That's my people's group.
Okay.
Those are my friends. Those are the ones I hang out with. That's where I'm getting fed and filled.
Yeah.
The other ones I am feeding into other people, and I'll pull the pin on that and run in just a few minutes. Okay. Let's be honest. It's happening because it's the best way to start a new small group is start it, be there for about 6 months, and then hike out.
Don't join Craig's small group.
Don't tell anybody you're going either. Just roll.
Tuck and roll.
Yeah. And but we're gonna go see John Christ stand up special together as a group.
Fun.
So we just bought all the tickets, but that kind of stuff, just going out and hanging out and having fun. We had just ended the series, small group series, so we decided we're just going to get together and eat and roast marshmallows. So we just did that. We didn't do any Bible study, and we just talked about life and trips and things, and and that's the kind of stuff that you enjoy with people.
Yeah.
We do that. We do a monthly hang with our kids, and then we do a monthly date night with our small group. So
that's awesome.
We offer something for families just in case childcare is an issue, where like we'll do like a pumpkin patch or a swim party, or we've done tons of things, right? And then we do a date night. So the last one we just did was the concert, the Awakening tour.
Okay, yeah.
So we did that as a date night. But we are talking about, this is one thing I really want to do, is running the church out and doing a hide and go seek.
Like a Nerf gun?
Yeah, Nerf gun.
Yeah, I can show you the spots.
I know.
I got the dark spots.
I'm just saying.
There's some dark spots that are pristine for hiding in, that no one can see you if like you're 4 feet in front of their face. It's just great. But no, and that's good. Adults want to do fun stuff like that. They do.
I think it's important too, and it shows people that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you can't have fun.
Oh,
Yes.
And because I think a lot of people think that, we're just like these stiff people who just, we just sing and read and that's it. And no, like
hallelujah.
we have fun. And like, it's, I know like those fun things that we do have just like really like reignited joy in our lives, like dressing up like old people and like
absolutely,
it was a fun night, like, and it's something I look forward to now, and it gives us like just I don't know some happy joy.
And I get it nowadays because the social media, I'm having to be back on it for right now, and it's driving me nuts because social media, it makes everything seem like you have to be
perfect.
Not just but it's just like everything's got to be at the club like
oh yeah,
and it's just like I'm not. I don't understand. Well, I do understand it. It's the deception of Satan that's fun. It's fun to go out and get hammered and get blasted, and it's fun to worry about all the, here's what I'm wearing and here's my thousands of dollars in bracelets, and it's fun to do all of this stuff. Like this is my fit for today or whatever. I don't know. It's fun. And we watch shows like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or Real Housewives of whatever stupid city in the world. Oh, I don't watch none of it. It drives me nuts. My wife is obsessed with that stuff. And our 90 Day Fiance. And it is one of those things where I go, we can feed into this reality that it's all about the person. It's about me and my pleasure and what I want out of life. So it's what can I get? What can I do? I want to get drunk. I want to not feel. I want to do. But there's really no joy in that.
Right.
It's a fleeting thing, and you get to the end of it, and you're like, well, I got to do it again because it didn't work. Where dressing up like old people with a bunch of people that love the Lord, it really does bring joy. It sounds weird to those who it does. You go out there. You go right downtown to Seville and be like, "Hey guys, we're gonna go dress up like old people and go hang out," and they'll be like, "That's stupid. Y'all are weird." But there's a joy of hanging out with people that love the Lord, and it's a joy that doesn't leave. The next day, it's there. It's not a fleeting moment, and that's what community can bring, and that's what relationship with Christ can bring, where the world cannot offer those things.
Well, I think also like when you have people that are pouring into you and loving you like that and love your children, like it's fulfilling and joyful because not only are you now friends and brothers and sisters in Christ, but they become family. Like I'm a big advocate that sometimes the family that you're born into isn't the family that you need, and sometimes the Lord has to remove some people that are blood.
That's true.
And replace that with other people.
That's true.
Because He knows that you need that. And so I'll tell you this, like there are so many people in our church that we consider family. Like we love hard and we love deep. And to your point, the hardest thing I think in ministry is pouring into somebody that you love so deep and watching them walk out those doors.
Oh, that's the worst.
And there's nothing you can do.
No. And I will say this, as long as they are going somewhere else, and we've had a number of people that have ended up going and being deeply involved in other churches in our community, and it hurts because like that original small group we were talking about, I think there's probably only
it's me and Mike left.
Yeah, there's I think one other person maybe that's left from it, but a lot of those people are different churches, but they're plugged in and they're involved generally, and that's okay. That's as long as they're still serving the Lord. You have to learn in ministry. They've got to find their own way, and that's all right. And that's one of the things we've actually even told our kids, especially now that my daughter's 20. It's like you don't have to go to church here. And that goes back to that being a pastor's kid thing. Is the expectation is you just show up. Well, if this is not where God is leading you, and that's the most important thing, is what is God calling you to do? And I would tell you that is the key FYI to marriage. It's not what are you permitted to do or what do you want to do or what's going to feed you in the moment. What is God calling you to do?
That's good.
And I've met with couples that there's been infidelity, and I'll look at the partner that was cheated on, and I'll be like, listen. You have every biblical right to call for a divorce. That is something you have the right to do. But is that what God is calling you to do? And that's what I need you to pray about this week. That's just the calling. And if God says yes, great. Okay. But if God says no, He wants you to stay because He's got something deeper in store and better in store, and He's got restoration in store. Let's do that. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but we can get there, and you'll see God do something incredible because it's calling. And that's what I want my kids to understand. That's what I want everyone who walks through the door of a church to understand, even those you spend your life on, is what is your calling?
Yeah.
And let's follow that, whatever it may be. But I will say this about going back to what you're talking about with your kids. Let me ask you this question. In your small group, do y'all let the kids just kind of like, they come in and out of the small group and just like, we're a bunch of parents and our kids are like, ah!
It depends. Like, so our small group meets on Sunday mornings, and so we have childcare for Sunday mornings. But like when we have our family get-togethers, yes.
Yes.
When we have our date nights, no.
Okay. So we did that. When we had a small group at our house and we had a bunch of younger kids, they would just come in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And it was so funny because go back to the stages idea. We'd have people that come and try to join the small group that have 0 kids.
Oh, and
they would drive them nuts. Yeah. They would be like, what is with this craziness? But every one of us that were parents, we could go right on and not even think about it. Even now I've got a couple, even though most of the people in our group, my friend group right now, have older children. I've got one that's got younger kids. Her kids in and out all the time. They're always there, and we're fine with it. We're cool with it.
Yeah.
It might annoy her sometimes. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, we don't care, because we're parents. We get it. We completely understand the chaos. So I would say, encourage you, especially people that are looking to get into groups or start a group, don't worry about childcare and what do we do this.
Yeah.
Be family together. And that was one of the things that brought more people into my kids' lives in ministry, is all these people that love on them and would love on them every single week. So it's kind of a neat thing. So that was a really sideways way of getting around for whatever we're talking about.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
It's kind of a hard one, but we talk about like you pour your heart out in ministry to people, and like even you, Meg, like you pour into a lot of people too. And one of the things that I struggle with, and I'll be human to say, like, I can see the picture. I can remove my selfness, like me, and I can see that like I'm not doing this for Brittany. I'm doing this for the Lord. But you have Christians that are newer or that are maybe in a different spot in their walk with the Lord, that the self part is still so prominent, the selfishness. How do you break through that and not come off, because obviously we're supposed to speak truth in love, and there's times when biblical advice and biblical counseling can touch them the wrong way because of the spiritual immaturity.
Right.
How do you combat that with somebody like in the church who is doing wrong, or is their self is so in the ministry that they can't remove themselves from the ministry to see that they're in the way of what God is trying to do in their life?
Ooh, wow. That is a tough one. Well, first, you do have to be blunt. I think there comes a point in time where you can no longer hint around that you're the problem. You got to go, listen, we got to talk. I love you. I love you. But right now, you're being a big problem in the ministry, because it's all about what you want. You have to get away from the idea that what I want is paramount. This concept, and this concept in Christianity as a whole right now, God will bless you and He will increase your territory. And there are some truths to that, but much like Satan does with a bunch of things, he takes that and he twists it into, you should get everything you want, and I have not gotten everything I want in ministry or in life. I would love to be the head pastor and preaching every week and having this platform and this, that, and the other.
The helicopters?
Yeah, the helicopters and all that kind of stuff. We don't have helicopters. That's a complete lie. But I would love. There was one thing in my life that I really wanted, and then I had to realize that wasn't what God wanted for me. But instead, what God wanted for me was better than what I wanted for myself. And that's kind of the key, is helping people understand that, yes, you may want this. You may think that this is what you want. This is not what God wants for this church, number one. And so if it has to be the choice between what you want and what the church body as a whole wants, then we as the under shepherds are required by God to remove that from the body. We have to get the disease out. So like you can't just, you see you've got a cancer and go, well, eventually it'll work itself out. No, sometimes you got to go in there with a scalpel and cut it out. And you got to pull it out. So there are times when that's the case. If you cannot get somebody to understand, you do have to ask them to step down. You have to either ask them to step down out of a ministry to become a layperson, and they will probably get offended and they'll probably leave and go to another church. But what's interesting is when I first started here, I was working with a guy who was our rec pastor, and he would butt heads with pastor so many times about different things. Young guy, and I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, he wrote pastor a note because he had left, and it was not a great goodbye. But he wrote pastor a letter apologizing and saying, "I've learned so much, and I see clearly now what I didn't see then." And you hope for that. You hope that will be the case. I understand that's not always going to be the case, but your job in a church and a ministry is to protect the whole first, not the individual. So you've got to be willing to go to the individual and say, "This is not okay. Either we fix it or it's cut out." And then work on helping that person see what's going on.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's hard sometimes because I think we are so self-focused. So when you get called out in love, sometimes it feels like you're being, isolated and called out. And I've felt that way many times. So it's like that fine line of how do you still love someone like Jesus would, but also protect.
You keep checking in on them. You don't let it go. You a lot of times we can, rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak, and never go back to that person and say, "Hey, I love you. Are we good? I just want to, I want to check in on you." I'm not because you just want to make the waters calm, because you actually love the person.
Love it, yeah.
And the more you can show them that love, the more you can say, "Hey, this is because I care about you as an individual." I had to care about the church more at the time. I had to care about what was going on in the church more at the time, because it's not just about you, it's about the whole. But I do still care about you. So don't just drop them off on the curb and say, "Well, I'm not going to talk to them again because they were being a jerk." That's not being a good steward of
Right.
your influence. So yeah, you have to love on them slowly, and they may not accept it. They may never accept it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If they never accept it, you can walk away and say, "I did everything I could." And
That's so hard.
That's one of the things of the Bible that I love is that, when Christ sent his disciples out into a city, he says, "If they receive you, sit with them and stay with them. But if they receive you not, wipe the dust off your feet, and it will be to them as a curse." He said, you don't have to force yourself into situations. You don't have to force something. Give them the opportunity. If they don't accept the opportunity, I've done everything I can. The Bible says, do your best to live at peace with everybody. Not live at peace with everybody. Do your best to. Go as far as it can. It literally says, go as far as it depends upon you. That means if you've given your all and there's still not peace, that's not on y'all. And y'all can go, I'm clean. When I get to heaven, I'm clean. Oh, yeah.
Because I love so deeply that I'll keep going. I'm like a little retriever, golden retriever. I'm like, you abuse me, I'm like wagging my tail ready for some more. And I think that's my biggest hardship is like I love so deep, and when people do walk in ministry, it's so hard to understand how you've gotten a taste of such an amazing thing like our small group or like our church or even Marcus Pointe in general, and then to see them walk away, maybe they don't go somewhere else. It's like you saw God's goodness and you saw how he restored and what he did, and I'm like, you just want to shake them, be like,
yeah. I think one of the hardest things too is to remember that nothing you say or do is going to change that person. God, they have to be willing to allow
It's the Holy Spirit. Yeah.
And that's very hard to, because I don't want you to change or do something to appease me. So like we're good. I want I want it to be something that, because this is what the Lord has called you to do, and that's very hard to like, because if you're just trying to appease me, that's not going to last long.
Yeah.
Like
It's true. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good.
It is hard, but understanding that there is a limit, that we all have to understand that God said, that the Lord said there's a limit to how far you should go, because he never called upon the pastor or the pastor's wife or the minister or the lay leader to live in such a way that is detrimental to themselves. We're going to sacrifice. There is no doubt. There has been a multitude of sacrifices in my life, sacrifices of time, sacrifices of money, sacrifices of just energy, resources, whatever you want to call it. I have gone to bed frustrated and crying, and my kids have watched this. There have been a number of sacrifices over the years. That's not to say that you don't sacrifice every single day, but you have to understand where you're sacrificing to. if I'm sacrificing all this to someone who has left and is gone and is no longer, I have literally done everything I could to bring about peace in this relationship, but I'm still trying and pushing and trying and pushing, because that now is no longer about God. That is now about me. That is now about how I feel about the situation, because God has released me from it, but I have not released myself. So I learned about 6 years ago to learn how to let go and release myself from a situation. And it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And it took legitimately probably everybody I love coming to me and saying, this must stop now. You are sacrificing too much. You are about to kill yourself over this thing, and you need to let it go because you cannot fix it. And I just prayed. I said, God, I can't let it go. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
It hurts. I don't want to let it go, but you have to take it from me. And he did. And he's now given me the ability to say no to people and to say, and that's part of guarding ministry, is we can say yes to certain things and no to certain things. And we have to be honest with our time, and our talents and our treasures. And we have to be very, very careful how we manage those things. But it comes down to, I didn't want to say no. I wanted to fix it. I wanted it to be right.
Yeah.
But God had already released me from it, so I had to let it go.
For the record, you say no to me all the time.
I do now, yeah. But it took.
It took time.
The last 6 years.
You always said no to me.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
One thing, like, just kind of this. I don't know how many episodes you've listened to our podcast, but music means a lot to me, and I get worship, like music. Just it's something that the Lord has uses to kind of reel me back in sometimes. But sitting here talking, and like we're talking about in marriage, in church, and parenthood, I think it's so important, accountability, and how when we walk into our, I see a lot of those married couples as our accountability partners.
Absolutely.
To continue to grow in our relationships with the Lord as individuals, as a couple, as parents.
Yep.
And but I think sometimes that everyone struggles, and I know, like, I am definitely one of those people, is sometimes I want people just to sugarcoat it, but in the reality, what I need is somebody to be honest with me, to be like, no, you are not doing right here. And it reminded me of this song, and it can be geared towards preachers or really anybody that you're talking to, but my brother-in-law actually sang this with a group a long time ago, and it's "Oh preacher, you say you want to be my friend, don't be afraid to call my sin what it is, and preacher, tell me I can overcome, but it's only by the blood of the Lamb. Don't tell me like I wish it was, preacher, tell me like it is." And I think sometimes we don't want to hear the truth, but we need to hear the truth so that we we can turn from whatever that we're doing. And those people, I think the biggest thing that sometimes us as Christians fail to see is that now sometimes there may be malicious intent behind it, but most of the time when there are people who love you and like are in your corner, they're not doing it to make you feel like you're this piece of trash. No, they're doing it because they love you enough to say, hey, I want to hold you accountable. I see you struggling. I see you messing up. I see you headed towards a cliff. Right. I want to help you not go over the cliff. And I think it's important to have that accountability, but also be willing to hear it, and to really seek the Lord and say, God, like, help me to take the accountability, to hear it, and to see that these people love me enough to stop me from whatever I'm doing. Yeah,
and sometimes you can make that. I mean, I think of a person right now that I'm trying to just go to lunch with because I want to help this person in a situation. They will not text me back. Because they're, like, well, I don't need you judging me. And I don't need you talking about this. And I'm like, I'm not here to judge you. Again, I am a no good, horrible human being. I'm here as a friend who loves you and wants to walk beside you with this time. Right. And you do have to have hard conversations. You do have to make some tough calls sometimes. And I'm thankful we have a pastor and a number of pastors that will do that. We'll say sin is sin. And this is what the Bible says about certain things. Even, I know right now we're doing a series on finances and money, and no one ever wants a pastor to talk about money because they think that's, all they ever talk about. But the reality of it is, I'm not somebody who loves the tithe. It's not my thing. Like, it's not, I'm not a cheerful giver. It's never been. a spiritual gift that I possess. But it is something that if I don't, it's crazy, but if I don't do what God tells me to do in Scripture, I see the result. If I do what God tells me to do in Scripture, I see the result. And it's crazy. But finances is just one of those areas that I see it. You can see it in black and white, literal black and white. But in many other areas, we don't want to be held accountable. And there's people that will come into a church and they'll go through a terrible situation or a sin or an issue. And then they'll just say, you know what? I'm not going back to that church because I need a fresh start. I need to go somewhere where no one knows what's going on. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you could have right now. You need to be in a place where everyone knows what's going on and they love you instead. They love you in spite of everything going on so that they can walk beside you and hold you accountable. You don't need to go somewhere where no one knows and you can just recreate yourself. That's the opposite of what church community was built for. So what you're saying is exactly right. It's the accountability of not just the pastor, because obviously preaching from a stage is great, but we all know it. We could go and evangelize the entire world. You fly me to Costa Rica and I'll tell anybody about Jesus. Put me in a room with my family members and it's like
Crickets.
Because you're like, this is uncomfortable. Why? Because they've seen me as a baby. They know all of the dirties. They know all the little things, right?
Turkey.
And so you're just like, I don't know that I can talk to them about Jesus. And that's sometimes how it feels in a church world. When someone walks in, they don't see it as a place where I can be dirty or I can be vulnerable. But a small group like that, when it's opened up and done correctly, is a place where they can finally feel free to not be perfect.
That's good.
It's good.
You have any other questions?
What else we got? No?
I think I've
Done it. So obviously this was a little different of an episode, being that it's October and it's Pastor Appreciation Month. We wanted to have you on also just because you're a big part of Mike and I's story and the reason why we're here. God used you in many ways for that. Normally we end our segment at the moment at the well, like something pivotal. And obviously we normally talk to women and you're not a woman. But is
I
there...
could be. It's 2024.
You are not.
Okay.
You're welcome, Amanda. But is there a pivotal moment where you can remember that God really met you where you were at and like redirected you? Yeah,
there's been a couple in my life. But the best one I can give you is... Man, there's really two powerful ones. There's two powerful moments. Which one do I want to do? I'll tell you this. When I wanted to be the pastor here, our pastor had talked for a long period of time about finding the next guy to be him. And this was years ago. Golly, it's probably 8 years ago now. I walked into his office and I said, I want to be the next guy. I've been here 10 years. I've been faithful. I'm young. I was back then. I'm everything that you need. Everyone thinks I'm going to be it. It's going to be me. Yeah, it's God. Anyway. And he looked at me and he goes, you know what? You're not the next guy. And I was really pivotal because I was like, well, what am I doing here? Because the way the world works is the church is like a corporate ladder. You have to climb the corporate ladder. You got to go to the next level. And I had really kind of ascended. I was now aging out of student ministry where I was relevant, but my kid was also getting into student ministry, and I did not want to be my kid's youth pastor at all, because I want my kid to have somebody to go to other than myself to talk through things, which has been great here. Because you're not the next guy, but I do want to move you into small group ministry, which I was like, that's the thing I don't want to do the most. Like this is the worst. Like I went from being somewhere where I actually had a platform that I got to speak at every single week to never getting to talk about Jesus in a pulpit setting, right? And so I went home and I was like, God, I don't understand any of this. You said you're going to give me the desires of my heart. That's what the Bible says. Like, I don't desire bad things. I'm not desiring new cars. I'm just desiring a pulpit. That's what I'm desiring. And God called me. And there were moments in time that I believe God audibly would speak to me in terms of, I hear his voice in my head. It sounds weird, but it is true. And he just said, all I wanted you to do was lift the arm. And I was like, what? The only thing, are you okay if the only thing you ever do is lift the arm? And I was like, I don't understand what that even means. So I ended up going into scripture and finding Moses as he's parting the Red Sea, and there are two men that lift his arm to hold it up so that the Israelites can cross. And I was like, oh, so you want me to be Aaron? Like, you want me to be the guy, like the second guy, like the backup guy, the guy that, and he goes, no. And I was like, well, who's the other guy? And he goes, yeah. I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. Like, what does that mean? And he goes, the other guy, that's who you're going to be. I'm like, I don't even get to be the Aaron guy. I got to be the other guy? This doesn't make any sense to me, God. I mean, I've served you for 20 some odd years. I've given my life to you. And now all of a sudden you're telling me that I don't even get to, I may never get to preach again, honestly. It may never happen. And God said, I want you to be okay with my calling. And so I said, okay, fine. And I looked up, the other guy's name is Hur, H-U-R. So in a way I am her. So
It's all making sense.
it's all making sense now, right? That's why I'm here.
Full circle.
And Hur was second in command behind Aaron of the Israelite people. His name is only mentioned in scripture twice. It's mentioned in that moment, in the moment when Moses ascends up the mountain. He says, "I'll leave you in charge of Aaron and Hur." But no one knows who this guy is at all. And in that moment, God said, if your name is never known by anybody but the people I put in your life, are you okay with that? Because it was never about you to begin with. It was always about me. And so I may never give you the opportunity to speak again. You may never get the opportunity to preach again. You may never do any of these things. And you got to be okay with that because it was never about you to begin with. And what's interesting is God changed my heart. And that's what I think is the great thing about it is I absolutely love what I do and where I'm at. I wouldn't want it any other way. And so when it says God will give you the desires of your heart if you're faithful, what that means is not that he will give you what you currently desire, but he will make what you desire what he desires. And so that was pivotal for me because I stopped looking for anything about me to be fulfilled. And I just said, okay, God, I'm going to fulfill everything you want from me. And in that, he has blessed me beyond measure. In my family, in my kids, in my household. I mean, just in so many ways. I don't even get to post on social media stuff that much because it is something that I've been God and I've been on a very same page of. It's not about me. It's about the ministry. It's about what he's doing. That's why it took me forever to get into this podcast studio because I don't want it to be about me because there's nothing special about me. It's just, what God is doing and just try to be faithful in that. And what he brings about changes your life.
That's good.
That's very, very good. Very encouraging.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for joining us today.
thank you guys. I'm excited for what y'all are doing. Honestly.
Appreciate you and all that you do.
Like, click, subscribe, whatever you got to do down at the bottom. I don't know. Things happen down there. Comment. I don't know. Drop us a pin. I don't know what you do.
Drop us a pin.
I don't know.
We don't want your
what
location.
do you do?
I promise you we don't want your location.
Cash donations. I don't know how this works.
Unless you can donate to the Lord, Marcus Pointe,
To the Lord.
BaptistChurch.org /Beulah. You can sponsor
Beulah Bash.
Beulah Bash or Beulah getting a building one day. So if
That's
you
true.
are looking to give,
If you have a lot of land and you want to give it in the Beulah area, just contact us. We
Yes.
want to take that land off your hands.
but also Beulah Bash, if you want to become a
No, that's
sponsor
cool.
or
Yeah.
you want to volunteer.
Well, and that's cool. Y'all are doing some really amazing things out there, and really connecting with that community. So kudos to y'all and your whole church. Not just obviously, it's not just you and Mike. It's a whole group of people. So if you are looking for a family, a place where people they can just love on one another, you need to check that out. It's an awesome place.
Thanks. Well, if you have any prayer requests, we would love to hear from you. So DM us. We can be praying for you. If you have any questions for Craig, I know he'd be open to
Sure,
answer.
why not?
Happy Pastor
Should I give up my
Appreciation
cell phone number now or no?
Month.
Okay.
We'll give him your
850
email. No, stop it.
889.
No. Happy Pastor Appreciation Month. Thank you for being on here. Blah, 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 blah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're welcome, Amanda. But yes, if you need anything from us, we'd love to hear from you. I know Craig would answer any questions. Shout out to the Wizard of Oz behind the camera. Thanks, Mike, for making this possible.
Mike.
Happy Pastor Appreciation Month to you.
Yes.
We appreciate all that y'all do to make this church what it is. The hands and feet of Jesus. We will see you next Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining.
It's a brand new day. Hey. Wake up every morning and say, it's a brand new day. Hey. Take a good day, make it great, okay? Cause if you got some lemons, make some lemonade. Yeah, chase those clouds away. It's a brand new day. Hey. It's a brand new day. It's a brand new day. Okay, okay. My whole life got them hand-me-downs, but what that meant was I had my family round. And sometimes I can't help but frown. Then I remember what I meant for. It's so simple, I just say, gotta just celebrate. It's gonna be A-okay. Life's too short to waste away. One step at a time's all it takes, okay. It's a brand new day.